farm in the 60s, the first item they found, and this dates now from 5,000 years ago, is this Iron Age funerary stela. It's a kind of, it's a sculpture. It's a very primitive work on the stone, on the sandy stone, and you can see a figure, a very, very simplified geometric figure with the head, arms and hands, the axe of the body, and this represents in that period of time in graffitis female ovaries and an end. And the three letters IVA, which may be posterior, they may not be from the same time these people engraved this. This was found in our very dear hill of San Cristobal, who is right in the south end of the farm. Very dear because in a way it also initiates the natural barrier that makes Remelluri possible, because it's the hill and the land that breaks and stops the nasty west winds, and why the monks chose this bag of land. And that's the end of the barrier. It's a beautiful hill that many friends and painters have painted, and in the south slopes, very steep slopes of that hill, the humans had some little huts and like caves to live and hide from the very, very dangerous big bear wolves at that time. And this came down and was found underneath in one of the vineyards our parents plowed in the 60s. And they recovered it and called the archaeologists to make this description, and they said we could keep it here because it's better that stays in the place to be explained to people than to take in a museum. So it's here voluntarily by them. So we're very grateful to their attitude not to care and take everything to the cities, no? And the second element we can talk about history is the Remelluri in the 10th century. In fact, the word Remelluri was born in the 10th century, because in the 10th century, the communities of the northern Christians of the Spanish Iberian Peninsula, from Galicia to Basque area, all these community of Christians decided to start making guerrilla fights, small little fights against the Muslims, because the Muslims were standing and working and getting taxes here in the Ebro Valley and all the way to the south of Spain. And these guys in the north decided to start pushing them down. So they created what in Basque is called Uri. Uri means village, little village. We represented these in a kind of a very primitive vegetable and straw huts. And these would be near the water fountains, hidden in the trees here in the mountain, in Remelluri, the mountain, and from here they would do these guerrillas. And there are many uris here, like over 200, between Burgos and Logroño, okay? So one of them is Remelluri, and the name of this uri comes from the person who created this village. He was an aristocrat, he was a count, he was one of those warriors, and he was born near Bilbao, and he created two villages, this and another near Aro. So they named the village after Remel. We suspect that in the burials, my parents found all the cemetery of the bodies of these people, and they did these diggings with the archaeologists. This is an aerial picture. You can see lots of little holes on the rock by the vineyard. We suspect that Remel, his wife, and his 4 children were the ones in a more high promontory situation, like being status of power above the others. All of these were men, women, and children corresponding to family groups. These people stayed here in Remelluri for 200 years, and in the 12th century they pushed the Muslims down and they abandoned these very poor primitive villages to go and create the actual Rioja hilly villages, where the wine started to boost and be made. So the wine with Romans arrived earlier, the vineyards earlier, but the proper formal wines started to be made in the area around the 12th century. The next step for Remelluri history, and we are almost finishing, don't be worried, is the 14th century, where the proper farmhouse was built by a community of monks. And now we can turn to the other side. Please, follow me. As in most places in Europe, the monastic communities of Catholic religions of all sorts were extremely rich and powerful around the 14th century. Spain was the same. In Spain, the royal king and queen Fernando and Isabel, Catholics, became extremely rich after the trips to America and getting the gold, etc. So at that time, both the proper richness of Spain as a country and also the crown was extremely wealthy, and also the Catholic religion was making people, pilgrims, normal citizens, to give in donation most of their goods at their death. So these monks and communities were extremely rich. So rich that this community of Jeremite Hieronymus monks decided to create a very, very impressive monastery on top of a very rough situation, a very tough condition. Up there, above the rock here, is the ruin of the huge monastery they built on the 14th century. Here you have some pictures we took in the 90s with some of the details of the very beautiful Gothic engravings in the rock and the stones. They were having a beautiful church to get pilgrims from all the place to pray and to give donations and to feed the monks and to have the wine and the bread for the celebration. They took this beautiful bag of soil with fountains, water around, the wind breaking here by the west, and they created the farm Our Lady of Remelluri, La Granja Nuestra Señora de Remelluri. And this is it. That's the origin and the story of this place. The end of this story is that Spain promoted a liberal law in the 19th century, and they decided that they were going to take away the property of the religious communities and give it to the people. And that happened then, and most of the Spanish monasteries were destroyed in a way. The monks disappeared or went somewhere else, I don't know. And the local people bought all these properties, making really tiny bits of land, of soil, and it all degenerated a little bit, and all this power was a little bit diluted. That's how our parents could buy this incredible place with a house quite derelict, but still there, and the old church, and 25 hectares of vineyards and cereal in the 60s at a very reasonable price. Nobody wanted to try and work up here near the mountain. The roads were impossible, the soil was very poor, lots of stones, very, very poor soil. So basically that's the reason why these places were abandoned. And thanks to our parents' goodwill and determination, passion, and I think also culture, they were very cultivated and intellectual people, they saw the potential, they saw the beauty of the place, and they decided to make it for a life project. And now we are second generation of this project of the family, Telmo and I are running the place, and it's really a challenge and a privilege to continue caring for the place and making great wines in the bottles, you know. So this is more or less the summary. You want to